to our Wednesday in our science family. I'm so excited that you are all joining us here. If you are new, just know that we do a little bit of shout outs in the beginning. So everybody, if you want a shout out, make sure you type your name in the comments and we will say hello to you personally, which is like a great part of my day. We're also going to go over the supplies you will need so that while we do the shout outs, if you need to, you can run and go grab those supplies and be all ready for our lesson today. Because today we are going to engineer with movement, and we're actually going to make something move without touching it or using electricity. It's going to be amazing. So a quick thing, if you're new, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can get notifications when we're going live. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram and share our message that we are doing science all the way into the school year, because we're all here together. We're an awesome support system. Come the days that work for you, skip the days that don't, no pressure. So today, to make our awesome little movement boats, we are going to need popsicle sticks. You're going to need either glue sticks or tape, sort of up to you. I'm a big fan of glue sticks. Sometimes I use them both. You're going to want some scissors. You need a rubber band. Hair band will totally work for something like this, or an elastic will work for that. And then you need some thin cardboard from your recycling bin, or if you happen to have like some thin plastic, that's even better because it's sort of water resistant to start with. And a bin of water. So to be honest, you guys at home, your bathtub is probably gonna be way cooler for this project because you can make your boat go all the way across the bathtub. Our boat doesn't have very much room to move, but that's okay. We're gonna do it in this little jar. So make sure you have a spot that has some water for you to test your boat in. I've got a towel handy because it's gonna get wet. And that is what we have. And I wanna show you guys what we are doing. So normally on Fridays, we always do paper circuits. And this Friday, we are not actually making a paper circuit. We are making an awesome little LED lightsaber / wand if you want to take this part off. So if you need some of the stuff for this and you just joined us, you can email me and I can mail some stuff out. It won't be there by Friday, but it'll get you set up so you can make this awesome little project. And next week is our Witches and Wizards week. We are going to go into Harry Potter world and make lots of potions. We're going to engineer a fun little game of Quidditch. Awesome. All right, so today we are going to engineer some movement, which means if we want to create movement, we have to add some energy into our system. So we're really going to engineer with energy. And there are two types of energy. There's one called potential energy, which is like it could potentially move. It could move, but maybe it doesn't. But maybe it could. You're giving it the ability to move. And then there's kinetic energy, which is the fancy word for saying it's moving. I don't know where kinetic comes from, probably like a Greek word. But kinetic energy is like, oh, now it's moving. You could have a mix. You could have some potential energy and some kinetic energy because maybe you're moving. So I wanted to give you guys a few examples. In our very first week, we actually made kinetic potential energy rollers. And we learned a little bit about energy then, but I wanted to sort of go over it really fast. So I could take this pair of scissors, and on the table, nothing's gonna happen. Nobody is sitting there on the edge of their seats being like, what's gonna happen, Dr. Erica? Are those scissors gonna move? Because I'm pretty sure it would be cool if my superpower could move it, but I can't. I could give it the potential to move it, and the way that I would do that is I would just lift it up. Boop. Now it could move if I let go, like that, and it moves. I could give it more potential energy so that I could make it move faster by just lifting it higher. And by the end, it's going faster. So that's one way to give a system some energy, to give it the potential to move. But there's another way that we could do it. We could stretch things. So for example, I have this fabulous balloon. I could move this with my breath. So I could blow it up. And now all this stuff is stretched. It has the potential to move. It could possibly move. If I let this go, the air is going to move out of it because this balloon does not really like to be stretched. So it has potential to move right now. And if I let go, whoop, it moves. That is awesome. And there's another one that you could do with stretching, and it's like this, where if I took like a rubber band, I could stretch that rubber band and I could give something the potential to move by stretching it, just like that. So I could stretch it and give it potential energy, that possibility to move, and then I could release it and it would change into that kinetic energy where it can move. Now you might be saying, Dr. Erica, how does this make my boat move in the water without me touching it? Because for the most part, when we want to make something move, usually like we burn something, like gas in a car, or we boil something, like water, and use the steam, or we have to physically be pushing something like that. So it's kind of hard for us to make something move without it actually, like us touching it or burning something. But here in our boat, we're gonna do just that. And the way we're gonna do it is instead of stretching the rubber band like this, front and back, we're actually going to twist our rubber bands. And you can imagine when we twist a rubber band, when we let it go, it's gonna untwist. And we can use that twisting motion to paddle a boat. And that is what we are going to do today. So you should have some popsicle sticks, but we're gonna pause for a second because Evan looks like he's raising his hand for you guys.
We have Tamsin and Laurel here.
Oh, hi Tamsin and Laurel. How are you ladies today?
And also we have Naomi says hello.
Yay, Naomi's here. All right, so to build your boat, as you're engineering it, there are a few things that you're gonna wanna think about in your head. One of them is size. How big is your boat? For me, I probably shouldn't build a boat that's this big, because then I can't put it in my bin. And I probably shouldn't even build a boat that's this big, because if I want to see it move, then I need to have some space for it to be able to move in. So that makes it really tricky. I need to think about, how big do I want my boat to be so that it can move through the water? So I'm gonna make a boat that's maybe about this big, is gonna be sort of my goal. But you might be making a bigger boat because you might have your bathtub. So maybe you don't have that issue. That's an option. Another thing you're gonna wanna think about is the strength of your boat. So if you build your whole boat out of paper, you might find you have an issue because when you put it inside that bathtub, the water, it'll float for a little bit, but the water's gonna make it all soggy and sloppy and smushy. So that might be an issue with structure. So those are some things you wanna think about. And then we also need to think about where we're gonna put our paddle wheel. And I'm gonna make a really quick little boat, but you guys should build awesomer boats than I make. This is just a quick example boat for you guys to sort of follow along, but hopefully you guys will use your creativity to make your boat way more amazing than mine. And that you guys can share with us in Zoom. And if it doesn't work, we can look at the project and we can see what's happening in Zoom and we can try to figure it out.
Should they try drawing out their boat first?
Yes, if you want, you could totally try drawing out your boat. Scientists draw things all the time. In fact, when I was getting my physics degree, like even a word problem, we would draw out. Everything. Everything got drawn. It was kind of amazing. And yet, I'm still terrible. I draw stick figures for everything. But that's okay. So I'm gonna make my boat like this size, maybe a few popsicle sticks wide. Actually, maybe I wanna make it wider. I might make a raft. We'll go with this for now. We'll see. So I'm gonna make a little tiny thing right here. I'm gonna just glue these popsicle sticks together. And I find it's easier to glue popsicle sticks like this together with like a piece that goes orthogonal. So like I have all these ones going up and down, and then I have two that are glued on going sideways. And that's easier than trying to glue them together on their seam. Gluing them together on their seam, I find, is a great way to get burned. So just something to think about. And I'm gonna put some sides on my boat so that I can have like a paddle wheel that's gonna come back here. So I'm gonna glue on the side of this, but just on the side of one of them. So I can glue that side piece on. And that's the beauty of hot glue. If you don't have a hot glue gun and you are a maker, that is what you should ask your parents for your next birthday present. Like hot glue guns are like, they're the best in terms of making something, just because it dries so quickly. It adds a lot of strength to your project. If you want to do something in the water, I mean, hot glue is not great for the water because once it gets wet, you can't really go back and glue it. But it's so much better than tape, I find. So, and there are low temperature ones. If your parents need convincing, there are low temperature glue guns that you can use that won't burn you quite so much. All right, well that dries. I need to add in a paddle wheel, and that paddle wheel is gonna have the rubber band part to it that's gonna twist up and then untwist to make my boat move. So I'm gonna have my paddle wheel, it's gonna come out towards the back. So I'm gonna just put on some little pieces here because my paddle wheel has to have nice full clearance, right? I can't put something right in the middle, otherwise it'll untwist and just hit it and stop. So I'm gonna give myself a lot of space off this back, sort of like back wings, like what are those things on cars, like a spoiler? Maybe like the back spoiler. Ooh, it could be like a speedboat. That would be super fun. I love speedboats. And you don't want to go super high, because if you go really, really high, you're gonna actually have to have a bigger paddle wheel to be able to reach the water. So you do want to think about how far up. If I went straight up, I'd have to have like some massive paddle. So that could be a little tricky because your boat might not work as well as you're hoping. All right, so I've got these two on. I'm gonna try to get the angle mostly the same, but it's not imperative. So I've got my little raft here, and then this is where we're gonna put the paddle wheel on. And our paddle wheel is going to be basically just a rubber band. And I'm gonna twist up this rubber band with some stuff inside of it to make that paddle spin. But if this rubber band gets really tight, you can think to yourself, what would happen if I pinch this really tight? Like if I start really sort of coming in here, you can kind of see it, even right now with the sticks, you might notice those sticks are coming together. And I want to get it really tight so my boat can go really fast. And so I'm already thinking ahead of, that is going to be a problem for me. And one way I can maybe solve it is to add sort of like a brace back here. So I'm going to cut a piece of my popsicle stick to add a brace. Now you don't have to do this. Whoop. It's just like an idea to try to help it have more structure and be a little bit stronger. So I'm going to add some glue here on both sides. And I am going to just plop this in here. So now when I put that rubber band around there, it can't really pinch these guys in. You'll notice on mine, not perfection. Just want to say that. It's totally fine for your project to not be perfect, to not be symmetrical, right? We're just learning, and the more we practice, the more we learn, the better our projects will be next time. All right, so I have this guy, it's getting pretty ready, but I need that paddle. I'm gonna use this thin plastic as a paddle because I think it'll just work a little better, but if you don't have thin plastic, you could make one out of cardboard, and in fact, you know what? Maybe I'll make mine out of cardboard. If you have thin plastic, that'll work great. Don't use an aluminum can for this, because when you cut aluminum cans, it's gonna get really, really sharp. So I would caution you against that. All right, so I'm gonna take a little bit, just so you guys can see, with some cardboard. And I have a question on YouTube. Let's ask it.
Well, no, not so much a question.
Oh.
Kaya is here.
Hi, Kaya. Welcome.
You missed our little tiny dancer
Welcome.
show.
I know. Oh, so sad.
Also, friends, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up and share us on your Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, wherever you like to.
Fabulous. I'm going to cut 2 rectangles, and I want to make sure my rectangles fit through this part because I'm going to make my spinny piece out of it. I don't want it to be too tight, so I'm actually going to cut it to give myself a little bit of space in here. This is going to end up being my paddle wheel, and I'll have to decide how thick I want it. Now, we need to make sure that if my paddle goes in the middle of this, so let's get our rubber band up here. This rubber band's a little bit loose, but we'll just really twist it tight. And I could have fixed that. A way that I could make this better would be to make my boat wider. That would be a way to make this better. So when I do this, my paddle is going to be sort of in here, and it can't hit this top bar right here. So it's got to be kind of short so that it can spin around in there. So I'm going to cut it like maybe about to here. I'm going to double check that it's there. And then I'm going to cut another one. And maybe I try to cut them a little deeper if I need to. I can always change this paddle out. Will not be hard. Because I'm using cardboard, and we talked about how cardboard might be a little tricky in terms of the water, I am going to strengthen it. But first, I'm actually going to cut halfway up the middle of my cardboard. And that is going to let me feed the 2 of these together. And I would do that also with the plastic. I can now feed them together.
Can you show that again?
Like that.
How to insert?
So I made the little cuts so they look like little pants actually. And then you just sort of, with the two cuts, you're going to put the two cuts together so that they can reach to the other end. Just like this. And then I want my paddle to stay sort of looking like a plus sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add some glue to it to sort of hold these cardboard pieces in a plus sign so they don't collapse down. That's going to be my goal. I don't want them to collapse down. Ooh, Georgia's going to join us. We're making these little paddle boats. You could start by making your bottom boat piece. All right, I'm going to wait for that glue to dry. You know, and George is coming in, and that's awesome. You guys can come in when you need to. I will tell Georgia, my paddle boat was maybe a little too skinny, so you might want to make yours thicker. It's an option. And I'm going to put a little bit of a seam of glue over here too, so that this plus sign stays really nice. And I need another glue stick. And if you're using the cardboard, we might have that trouble with it getting like floppy. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna cut little pieces of popsicle stick to hold that flop together. And that will hopefully give it a little extra strength and a little bit more ability to do what I want it to do. If you've got plastic, you might not even need that. Unless you find your plastic's really flimsy and it like isn't going through the water like you want because it's just sort of bending out of the way. In which case this could be a possible solution. But you might also have a better solution. There's lots of solutions to all the problems that we find in engineering. And there is no one right way to engineer. Like this boat looks totally different than the boat that I made earlier. So it will always be slightly different. And that's a good thing. All right, so I'm gonna add in sort of these little wood popsicle stick pieces so that the cardboard is hopefully has a little bit more structure as we do that. And you could even make your whole paddle boat piece out of this. I hadn't thought of that. Instead of using cardboard or plastic, you could make it out of popsicle sticks. That would totally work. All right, so now I've got this paddle and I want to insert it into my paddle boat. So what we're gonna do is you're just gonna have it sort of stick out in the middle of the plus sign. So if it was an X, it would go into the middle of the X. All right, and you're gonna glue your rubber band on. And you might be saying, wait, Dr. Erica, you told me if my paddle doesn't work out, I could just take it off. You still can, because we'll test it before I glue in the paddle sides of it. Or you can just still break the glue off. So I'm gonna glue in my rubber band into my paddle piece. I'm just gonna hold it here for a moment while it dries. Just like that. So it's really like sort of tucked into that seam. And then I'm gonna skip one and I'm gonna go into the bottom one. So it's sort of like a top and a bottom piece to it. And then you want it to be pretty even. I want it to be in the middle for sure when I go on the bottom piece. And I'm gonna also add in a little line of glue on the bottom to hold this in, just like this. And if you don't have hot glue, you really could just sort of tape it in, or you could add little tie pieces. You could knot your rubber band right at the ends, and that would also work. And so now, if I want, I need to give my boat the potential to move. So I need to add some energy into the system, and instead of stretching the rubber band, we're actually gonna twist it, just like this. I can twist it up, and it will untwist itself as I go. So I'm gonna change that potential energy into kinetic energy. And of course, the more potential energy I add in, the more I twist it, the more possibility it has to move in that water. And one thing to look at, if your boat is not moving in the water, here's the bottom of my boat right here. If I continued the bottom of my boat, I would like cut off part of my wheel. That's a good thing, because that means here's gonna be where the water is, and this paddle part of the wheel will be under the water. And that's what we need, because if it doesn't hit the water, then we won't be actually moving water out of the way and moving our boat. So So when you're all ready, you can bring over your tub, whatever you decided you would move in, and you can place your paddle boat in the water. And you can see that mine it went really, really fast, and it had a rooster tail, which was really cool. But it didn't move as much as I would like, so I'm gonna try again and we'll see. Ooh, so I'm gonna try to engineer a solution to this. One thing I'm noticing is my boat is maybe like really deep in the water. It's sort of sinking. And it's like there's water all over the top of this. Because it's wet, I can no longer use hot glue. So if you are having the same similar problem, make sure in your head you're like, ooh, it's wet, I can't use the hot glue because hot glue doesn't stick to it. But I can use tape or rubber bands or thread or whatever I want to hold things together. And I can work with dry popsicle sticks. So I think what I might try to do is maybe make another set of popsicle sticks for right here. Maybe that will help it float. We're gonna find out. We'll try it.
We got a couple more people I'd like to say hi to.
Yeah.
Elliot and
Oh, Elliot, hello. How are you today?
Callie is here.
Yay! Hi, Callie. That's awesome. I love it. I love it when people come when it works for them.
Join us in Zoom all the time.
I know. I am really excited to see everybody in Zoom today and see our projects that we made. And I'm really curious. So every other time that I've made this project, I've actually made a much wider boat, and it's always worked. So I might be learning something right now. Maybe I needed a much wider boat. Who knows? All right, we're gonna try doubling up on this. We're gonna see. Because why not? That's what science is all about. Problem solving. Big fan of it. Huge fan. In fact, I've had some parents tell me that their kids hate it when something does not work. And I totally get that feeling. I also don't like it when things don't work. But I just want to tell you guys, it took me 6 years of things not working and about 6 months of things working perfectly for when I got my PhD. So that's very normal in sciences when things don't work. So it's okay. It's not abnormal for things not to work in science. All right, I'm gonna give this a go. I feel like these sticks that I put in here are really handy because my cardboard does not feel floppy at all. I'm really appreciative that I tried that out. Let's see if this floats better. It still is really, it's working a little better, but it's really like back heavy.
Stack popsicle sticks in the front?
Maybe
I wonder.
I guess maybe you could put a little more weight on the front.
Maybe I could put a little more weight on the front. That's a good idea, Georgia. But it is working actually. If I don't, maybe I'm just doing it too hard. Maybe I'm winding it too much. I'm giving it too much energy.
We got John Good here.
Oh, hi, John.
And he's doing it all by himself. He had to set it all up and got it all by himself.
Good job, John. Oh yeah, so as it goes a little slower, it seems like it actually pushes it a little better. So mine is like I'm twisting it too much. I'm gonna have to think about how I could moderate.
Pulling it under, pulling it back.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the water, for sure. But I'm wondering if, I don't know, I'm kind of feeling like I might try again.
Does anybody have any ideas for how Dr. Erica can fix hers?
A wider boat.
Yeah.
Or maybe I could just tie a thing here. Ooh, I could maybe actually
add some weight to the front.
I'll add some weight to the front. And I'm kind of thinking I might add these guys to make it just a little rubber band a little shorter. We're just gonna stack in some shivs. Are these called shivs?
Kind of.
Maybe.
Spacers.
Spacers. Stack in some spacers. I'm gonna put 4 on each side. And we'll see if that sort of helps with how fast it's spinning. Because I'm thinking one of the problems I'm having is I'm spinning too quickly. And it's making it so that it sort of spins out. So we're gonna see if we can solve that problem. And both Isabella, Georgia, and Evan all think that I should stack some weight up front. So we'll try that too. All right, let's see. Let's see how that feels. Maybe one more. I think we're gonna do one more on each side. Because why not? We're just building. And hopefully you guys are building with us right now. And if you're new with us, you are so welcome to come join to our Zoom lunch. Join our Zoom lunch. And we always like troubleshoot. We just chat. Some people like to watch Tiny Dancer in there. It's a lot of fun. We have a really good time with it.
Do you tell them that Tiny Dancer has legs?
Oh yeah, Tiny Dancer's getting legs, which is awesome. They're getting bigger. Tiny's gonna be so fast releasing. Like once tadpoles get their legs, they start really moving. They're cruising in there. All right, so this is not gonna work without some tape. We're gonna add some tape in, and that's okay. I'm just gonna wrap it around because tape doesn't like to be wet, but if I wrap it around itself enough, it'll kind of stick to itself and it'll do a decent job. These are all the things, like the random things you learn by just building and building and building and building and building and building. So, the more we build, the better we'll get at building. I know nobody's really surprised by that. All right, let's try this one, and I'm gonna tape these guys in, just so that these sticks sort of stay together, because they're not glued on. And if I would have thought about that initially, I would have glued them on, and they would have been really nice and strong. But that's okay, because maybe this is my rough draft structure, and later I make a better one. All right, let's see if this helps. I'm gonna twist it up. And my rubber band has unglued. That's okay though. Maybe. There we go. We'll pull it through. All right, let's see. Oh, now it's working a little bit better. So you can see that as I add more things and work a little better, it's getting better and it's moving more. It kind of has this like pop movement and then it coasts a little bit, which I kind of think is cool.
So
it's like a rooster tail and then it moves.
Mama,
Kaya would
it's this, like, this way.
Kyle would like if you could do a review of the paddle, how you made the paddle.
Oh yeah, let's make a new paddle. Hang on, I'm gonna cut this real fast for Georgia. And then we'll do the paddle again. And so if you've got cardboard, the way that we did the paddle is I cut off a piece of this cardboard. And if you've got plastic, that might work better because it won't get all floppy on you. But we're gonna make 2 rectangles out of this paddle and then turn them into a nice little plus sign. So depending on how big your boat is, will depend on how big your paddle is. All right, so let's say I have a really wide boat. This could be a paddle for a really wide boat because the boat would have to be this wide for it. So once I have 2 rectangles that are the same, look at mine, they're not perfect, totally okay. Then we're gonna cut up to about the halfway point to make them into a pair of pants. So I'm gonna cut up to the middle, but I don't wanna cut like right over here. I wanna cut in the middle, this way, sideways, to the middle, up and down. So I'm gonna cut up and down to the middle, just like that. So it looks kind of like a pair of pants with a very tall waist maybe. And I'm gonna do that for the other one too. So I'm gonna have 2 rectangles that have been cut up into the middle like a pair of pants, okay? And then I can split my pant legs like this, and I can insert them into each other, and they will sort of, you gotta push a little bit, and they should feel snug, which is good. And then you'll have something that looks like this. Now, it might flop over like this, and this might be a way if you're having trouble to do it, is you could take it and you could have your pant legs, one up, one down, and you put one pant leg in front and one pant leg in the back, like this. You can see I have one pant leg on each side, and then you'll flip it, you'll just pull up into a nice plus sign. And then what I did is I actually glued this seam right here to make sure that it couldn't flip over. All right.
Can you give me some paddles?
So that is how we made our paddles. And you could make some paddles that are out of plastic if you would like to. So it would be the same idea. And if you have like a 2-liter bottle, that would work. If you've got, what else might this have? And this is like a little plastic box that we had.
I have some scissors.
Again, don't use aluminum as what you're cutting. Don't use aluminum because you could really hurt yourself with that. So be careful about that. But again, if you're doing plastic, I have my 2 plastic rectangles, and I am cutting them up halfway into a pair of pants, just like this. And then I'm going to take them and I'm going to take the pants, one on each side, to make this plus sign. I'm noticing this plastic's kind of cool because it's kind of actually folded over on one side. But it is a little flimsier than the cardboard, so it's a little trickier to play with. But it won't get wet in the water. Well, it will get wet, but it won't like get mushy in the water. Pros and cons to different materials that we have. So these are options that you guys can use as your paddles. Hopefully that helps Kaya make her paddle. We'll find out in Zoom. So I'm curious, if you guys have questions, feel free to pop on over into our chat and ask any questions that you would like. And make sure you think about decorations. Like maybe you could add a flag or some seats or a cabin. I don't know. You could add some cool stuff. In fact, these types of paddle boats first started on the Mississippi as a way to get tourists to go up and down the river. So Mississippi was very good for cargo, and it got supplies up and down. But it wasn't until paddle boats sort of really gained popularity that people, like, you would go and cruise the Mississippi River. And they used paddle boats, instead of being powered by a rubber band, because that would be maybe very tricky, it was powered by steam. So we would boil steam, add in a lot of energy into that water, it turns into steam, and we can use the heat from that steam to spin some wheels, which could spin our paddle wheel, which is pretty awesome. That is fabulous. And my girls are currently building. If it doesn't work out the way you're building, that's okay. You can start over. Like, I think I might in Zoom make a wider one, because I'm kind of feeling like if I would have made it wider, it might have moved better. My paddle would have been longer. I have this like little short paddle, and I'm feeling like it's not putting enough force in that water. And if I had a wider boat, I could have a wider paddle that would push more water, and it could go faster. That's what I'm thinking. We'll see.
Ray is asking, how do I connect the spinny thing to the boat? How's the boat?
Yes, fabulous. Let's do that. So I'm going to take off all this stuff of my boat. Let's break it up. Now it's all wet that my popsicle sticks are like bendy.
If people want to come over to Zoom, it is open, but we're going to go with answer some questions more on YouTube first.
Yeah, so Evan's going to get Zoom set up. All right, so Ray, the way that we've got it is you will have sort of these two pieces coming off the back, and you'll also have your paddle with your rubber band going top and bottom. What you'll do is you should glue that top and bottom in, just like that, so it's sort of stuck on the paddle. And then you'll take it and you'll put one side around one of these little pieces that come out, and then one side around the other, and I've already broken my boat, so there's that. I tried to rip it apart and it ripped the popsicle stick. But it will go like this, where it goes around it. And you just need to make sure you're able to spin this. Because if our paddle wheel can't spin, we can't add that potential energy in to then create movement when we let go. Hopefully that helps. So yeah, you're basically taking your paddle, you've got your paddle, you got your rubber band, you're going to put it top and bottom, and then you're going to attach it between the two sort of pieces that come out from your boat. Like this. And then you'll be pretty much ready. Now, if you don't put in the piece that sort of goes up here, what might happen is as you're spinning more and more, it'll bring these popsicle sticks in and it might break them. But that's something you could try. And you'll find out.
John maybe wants to share how to bend wood in Zoom, because he says he knows how to do that.
John's going to show us how to bend the wood, which is going to be awesome because you could make a really amazing boat with some bent wood. I'm guessing you have to soak it, because look what happened to my popsicle stick when I soaked it.
I think you can also steam it.
Ooh. Well, we'll find out from John. I am looking forward to learning something today. I like learning something every day.
I think we have some like hard workers right now because nobody's coming over to Zoom.
I like it. That is awesome. You guys are like really focused.
We're still here, and feel free to ask questions.
Amazing. We do have the Zoom classroom open, so if you're watching but you haven't joined us on Patreon, that's totally fine. But if you want access into the Zoom classroom, that is how we are doing it. So you can support us. It's as low as $1 a week, and that gives you access into our Zoom classroom. And it gives you all of sort of the supplies ahead of time. It gives you all of the printouts that sometimes we use. And then you kind of have a heads up for the whole week. You'll know what we're doing Monday through Friday of that week. So, and next week we are doing Witches and Wizards. So we're going to do a lot of potions. And I'm designing an amazing paper circuit sorting hat. I'm so excited. It's brand new. Never done it. It's going to be great. I can't wait. I do a cool sorting hat in my Harry Potter camp, which was really sadly canceled this year. We canceled our summer camps. But I do a really cool one that's actually electronic and it randomly sorts you into a house. And we can't really do that because it's going to be hard to teach you guys breadboards and electronics online. But I do have a paper circuit version. It won't be as random, but it will have some fun to it.
How do you put this down?
All right, so Georgia has the same question that Rachel had about how to put the paddle on. And Georgia, if this doesn't work as well as you'd like, I will say one thing you might want to think about is a longer paddle. But Georgia has this awesome little ship built. So we are going to put our rubber band around the two pieces that stick up. And then the paddle will come in and it goes on the top and the bottom. So it's sort of like it doesn't go in just one, it's got to have two on each side of that rubber band. And then I might be noticing, ooh, Georgia's paddle is awesomely long, but it might not make it. We might have to cut a little shorter because see, as I try to spin it, it's hitting her boat. So we might just give it a little cut right there to cut it a little bit. And then we'll glue this in and we can test her boat. And the paddle part's pretty easy to change. So if that is sort of where you're struggling, that's a pretty easy spot to change. So she gave it a little haircut. And now, ooh, this one might need a little haircut too. They all might need a little bit of a haircut. I think that was this, yeah, that one. But you don't want to do it too much because we want to definitely have enough stuff to spin. And now I can spin it and it's coming out just like that. That's perfect. That's what we want. So what I would suggest, Georgia, is maybe gluing underneath this rubber band to keep it nice and happy, and then you could test it out. There you go.
John was saying that in order to bend it, first you soak it, and then you heat it up with your hot glue gun, the tip of it, and then it will bend around your hot glue gun.
Really?
Micah says,
This sounds really cool.
if we dry it, can we then hot glue it again?
Yes, if you dry it, you can hot glue it again. I gotta try this. This one's been sitting in here. All right, John, so I got my soaked popsicle stick. How long do I have to soak it, I wonder? This one was in there while we were chatting. I'm gonna use a glue gun. I'm gonna bend it around it. Let's see. I'm worried I'm gonna break it.
Well, don't bend it too much. You bend it slowly over time. That's how they do it in wood shops.
It's
Let's see.
bending.
It is bending. It's working, John. I'm digging that. You can make sides to your ship and it could be look like a pirate ship, like hulls, and you could use a hole punch for cannonball areas. Oh, that would be so cool. That would be so cool.
Mama, can I have the hot glue in there?
Look at that. John's right. It totally. Now I have a partly smiley.
He gives the thumbs up.
I bet if I did it in more places, I could maybe even make a popsicle stick ring. What would I do with a popsicle stick ring? I don't know.
Hi, Kelly. I see you with your hand up.
I'm not
We'll
sure.
get to you when Zoom opens.
Yeah, so we should head over into Zoom. Again, this is Fridays. I gotta say this because this one's so cool, and I know that some of you guys come on some days and don't come on some days, which is totally fine. You should totally come the days that work for you. But this is such a cool project. I just want to make sure everybody knows that this is happening on Friday.
Lightsabers are amazing.
Little lightsabers.
So
They look
fun.
amazing in the dark. And if you don't like Star Wars, you can actually not add the glue part, and it could be like a little Harry Potter one. Zoop! So that is going to be our fun thing. All right, well, let's head on over into Zoom because we could put on Tiny Dancer.
He's
we
already
could
on.
check out. Oh,
I gotta
good.
rename him.
We have our caterpillars, which are
Can you cut
big,
this
little,
for me?
fatty,
Sure.
and fat dude.
Mama, can you?
And we have the Beatles. John, Paul, Ringo, and George, who are mealworms who are going to go into Beatles someday.
I think that the caterpillars should be named Romeo and Juliet and Friends. Nobody likes my ideas.
I don't think that works.
Don't forget to give us a thumbs up.
Yes, give us a thumbs up. Make sure you like and follow our stuff. And we will see you guys over in the Zoom classroom where you guys can ask questions, share your projects, we can troubleshoot together, or we can just have lunch and watch Tiny Dancer.
Yeah.
Totally up to what you guys are doing. We'll be over there until 1 o'clock. And then tomorrow we are going to build some towers using paper triangles. And you guys are going to try to balance as many Oreos as you can on these paper towers. It's going to be amazing. Griffin has done this one.
I have two.
And I think we've gotten somebody to stack 13 Oreos on their tower. So we have a big challenge ahead of
that
us
was an old way.
next week. Or not even next week. Tomorrow. We have a big